Hey, what's up, YouTube? So, I made a community post a little over a week ago asking you guys about your thoughts on the possibility of the Honda and Nissan merger going into 2026. Now, the goal with Nissan and Honda here is they want to become the third largest auto manufacturer to compete with Tesla and other Chinese automakers. But it's very conflicting and confusing because you see some articles saying that Honda's CEO struggles to explain what is going on and why this would make any sense for Nissan, for example. And then you have other things going on with people saying that we should do an Altima with VTEC, which would be diabolical. There's so many ways that we can look at this, but I think for the time being, there's a lot of things that I want to share with you guys in terms of my overall thoughts as a enthusiast in the space. If you've been keeping up in the space, Nissan has been experiencing things like the very late launch of the Nissan Z that kind of was met with lukewarm reviews, the CVT transmission issues that have plagued them for what seems like almost decades now, and the struggle to adopt EVs into their lineup, and the confusion around just our government, especially here in the United States. It's just like, are we in on EVs or are we out? Because there's so many things in the news talking about how you won't be able to purchase a gasoline engine in Los Angeles, California by 2035, for example. But it seems like that has just been a long droning conversation that's been going on with the previous administration that we have. But now with the new government regulations that are going to be coming in, I think they're going to be more leaning towards keeping the internal combustion and gasoline engines there. But Nissan, and behind the scenes, is not doing very well. They've had recent job cuts, letting go and laying off over 9,000 people. And when you look at the stock value, I mean, it's just completely tanked. And Honda's challenges with the EV market after the GM partnership really fell apart as well. Some of the strengths that Nissan carries with it, though, that maybe Honda sees a plus, is their global distribution. So they have around 300,000 in sales for Europe versus Honda, which only has about 60,000. But on the other side of the coin, Honda has a lot more financial stability in the game. So the idea is really all of this is just being propelled by driving sales and becoming a larger force in the game. And I think this is more of an air of desperation, just from what I've been seeing from Nissan, because they're probably running out of ideas on how to keep their business alive. If they keep just consistently losing out on more opportunities to either develop cars or make sales, then they're going to be dead in the water. And I don't know if this is a panic move by Honda by just accepting these terms. There needs to be some sort of synergy when these companies are working together. Now, one thing that I experienced very recently that I shared with you guys was me checking out a very old Geo Prism. So Geo used to be a brand that was also kind of in the same boat as this. It was technically a Chevy, but it was manufactured by Toyota, and then it was rebadged as a Geo, which, yes, it sounds very bizarre, but this is definitely not new news to anybody that's been in the automotive space. I mean, we can even look at the 5th generation Toyota Supra. That is essentially just a BMW underneath the hood, which is just so bizarre because it's a Japanese sports car that has the architecture of a German car. So reliability comes into the question. And it just makes it very confusing as to where the future Honda and Nissan comes into this conversation. And don't even get me started on Mitsubishi, because Mitsubishi's also might come into this merger, and I feel like they're sitting in the hotel chair in the hotel room, if you know what I mean, just kind of waiting for what's going to happen with Nissan and Honda. And I mean, Mitsubishi now, it's almost like a part of Renault. It's just a whole mishmash of things. Like, we all think that these brands are so different, but at the end of the day, it's all really to drive sales. And I think that's what's really tanked the enthusiast car market too, is because, just due to trends and the normal person that's not a complete diehard for cars and are just looking to get into something that is, somewhat affordable and reliable. A lot of those people are just looking for like a small crossover SUV. I mean, even the station wagons are slowly dying off. So that just kind of tells you where the motion of the space is currently at, especially if you are just going to be an enthusiast with it. Now, one key figure that I wanted to bring into this conversation is actually Nissan's former CEO, Carlos Ghosn. I think that's how I'm saying it right. And he's the one that actually credited or took most of the credit for turning around Nissan back in the 90s. And I mean, when we think about the lineup way back then, we had the 240SX, we had the 300ZX. My dad actually had a early 90s Nissan Maxima when I was growing up. And that was an absolutely fantastic car. I don't know what happened to the Maxima and Altima models as time went on, but it was just a little bizarre here. With that, he's saying, quote, "This is a panic move that's really going to lead to no synergy." And he warned them about prioritizing control over performance, which could doom the merger. And what he also claims is the deal is very government driven. Again, what I was talking about, all these EV agendas, it seems like so many people want to push the EV cars, but I just don't feel like we are ready for it just yet. But it doesn't really matter at this point because, people are going to ask for what they want. And going back to what Carlos is saying, this is all government driven with the possibility to prevent a foreign takeover. And this suggests the merger combines both companies with weaknesses rather than addressing their strengths. For Honda CEO, he's kind of in a skeptical position trying to, decipher all of this stuff. The analyst can suggest that Honda would be better off partnering with a healthier, more financially stable company. And I honestly agree with that too, because from what I see, at least with Honda, I feel like they have been very successful in what they are currently doing right now. And typically with these mergers, we can think like, oh yeah, well, the merger will officially start at X. It's going to take years and years and years for us to actually see that stuff. It might even be in very small sequences. So like on the older Hondas, Denso was a huge parts provider for a lot of the Honda engines. So would that mean that Denso would take more involvement in Nissan's production? Are there going to be more factories for Nissan or Honda? Are some of the cars coming out, are they just going to be, a lipstick version of a Nissan? So again, it's like they're trying to put a square in a circular hole. It's just going to be kind of a mess in terms of what I'm going to be predicting here. And I think that for Honda, they have a lot of opportunity here to say yes or no. And even though yes, the more the merrier is usually the case with a lot of these things. But I think in this case, if they have any of the issues that, Nissan has just been carrying forward with a lot of their cars, I mean, I could make a whole video just about all the CVT transmission issues that come around. Now, in the shop that I actually work at, there's a guy that he brings in those Nissan Altimas, Nissan Sentras all the time. And you don't even have to ask him. You already know he's doing the transmission on one of them. And, CVTs have always been kind of controversial, especially for enthusiast stuff. Typically on this channel, I like to show a lot of stuff with the manual transmission. But as time goes on, it seems like the demand for manual transmissions is going away. And then the overall car market overall is just completely suffocating everybody with supply. Now, I think that's why kind of the used car market is still thriving. That's why we have a lack of people can't afford these new cars. They're going to sit on lots and these dealerships are taking the loss. They're taking most of the hit out of this and not the actual automotive manufacturers, but it's actually these people that are behind the scenes that are really getting, just absolutely cooked and torched by all this. And it doesn't make any things better when you have a company that has a reputation that's just kind of going down the drain. Nissan at one point in time, was like the cream of the crop stuff. Really. I grew up with friends that we had 240s and we'd go to the Speedway and go have fun and stuff like that. And those old 240s, man, they're really built different. And it's crazy to see those cars nowadays could be worth more than you going out and buying a brand new Nissan Altima. It just puts a lot of things into consideration on how things are going to go. But I would be very curious to hear what you guys think about this whole situation. I just thought it'd be kind of cool to pop on here. I'm going to keep my eye on this for a little bit more just to see what analysts see about the major benefit of this Honda and Nissan merger. It just seems like Honda's reliability might be going down the drain. I also follow a lot too of what's happening with the L series motors. This is like the stuff that you'd find in like the Honda Civics, Civic SIs, and things of that sort. And what's just so crazy to me is that they run a belt for the oil pump. So that means that there is a rubber belt that is inside the engine that is not exposed to the elements that is turning the pump. But you have to remember that the rubber over time breaks down. And what you see a lot of these engines going through is that the rubber will break down, it will go into the oil pan, and it gets sucked up into the oil pump, and then it suffocates it because the passages aren't clear, and you lose oil pressure and you ruin the engine. I mean, that's just crazy to think about from somebody that people hold in such high regard, including myself, for Honda and their reliability. So I really hope that this doesn't have any like crazy negative consequences when it comes to just like Honda in terms of their reliability. And I hope that maybe this could even be beneficial for Nissan just to take a moment to realize where they're coming from. And then to really cap it all off, I do also think that it's worth mentioning Mitsubishi and all of this too, because if Mitsubishi, if they all come together as three, they have to be very strategic in the way that they're going to make all this stuff work. Who's going to do what? Who's in charge of this? What's the benefit? And again, Renault, they hold a 36% interest in Nissan. So we have French companies, we have Japanese companies, it doesn't even matter. It's all worldwide at this point. I just thought that this was interesting. And for Mitsubishi too, I feel like they've really lost their way. I mean, they basically have no more enthusiast cars. Mitsubishi, when you zoom back though in the macro, they make a lot of really different stuff. I mean, outside of cars and all that, for what they had during the era of what I considered like the peak era of Mitsubishi. I think about like the old Top Gear episode that included the red Mitsubishi Evo and the blue Subaru WRX, one of the biggest rivalries in the rally space of all time, and it feels like they just completely dropped the ball. Now Subaru, I feel like they have been carrying on the rally heritage that they always have ever since the late 80s, early 90s, but here we are, and Mitsubishi's lineup is filled with a bunch of economy cars, small crossovers, things that are gonna generate income, which is always great for these companies, because at the end of the day, it is all a business and it's all about making money. But I feel like we get turned to the wayside when being an enthusiast about this stuff, because it just doesn't really hold any merit. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and yeah, that's all I got. So see ya.